So we are starting on clarity. We were talking about this last week. I went in a little bit and into the set point challenge. And so the clarity is the biggest foundation of how you set yourself up. Now the set point challenge and the how, we're also going to cover an alignment in a different way. So this week again, I wanted to invite everybody, have something you want to work on, right? I really can't give you more than information. You have to literally teach yourself. If you go through the process, you'll have a good experience of anchoring this in. It's wonderful information to have on where you're consistent, where you're not consistent, the details you are managing, what you maybe could pay more attention to. It's very empowering work, and it blesses others. The better experience you have of yourself as a powerful co-creator, as a conscious being, as somebody in choice, the more you bless others through your experience. Okay? So, clarity. The what. Again, that's your end in mind. If you're talking principles, your goal or your target. And the biggest thing here, I mentioned it briefly last week, I want to talk about it a little bit more, you want to make sure you're in your own business. How do you know you're in your business? This one took me a while to get personally. It's the one thing you have control over. It's never about making somebody else feel anything. You do not have control over that. Right? So that was really tricky for me to discern it as somebody who thrives in taking care of other people, right? And making things easier for others. That was a really tough one for me to separate. So it's always your business. I was just coaching with somebody, they're going on an interview, and it's a big mucka-mucka interview. And they said, I need to get this organized in my mind, take me through it. And of course, she's doing really well. The point is, I would have originally, and most people might, if they haven't done this level of clarity, they would say the what is get the job. Well, that isn't the what, because you have no control over that. The what is how do you want to feel about yourself after the interview. That's your what. That's a target you can hit. That's in your business, and there's actually a lot more to that than you would think until you start going through the process, right? So finding out what your what is, you want to be really clear. It's something you can hit as a target. You can accomplish it without changing anybody else. I'm pretty sure we all have experienced wanting others to change, and that doesn't really work out very well. So if you stay powerfully in your own business, yes, other people will benefit, and chances are they will respond to a positive dominant resonance, right? So the fastest way is to make sure it's something that really is up to you. And again, it can be tricky because we always want, well, I want so-and-so to be happy, or I want them to not have a hard time, or I want them to feel less stress, or I want them to feel taken care of. And again, you don't have control over how other people will receive or what they're going through or what their agreements are to experience, right? So that's real important, that is your business only. Now, when you talk about your why, you can include other people because, say you want to interview well, it could be because I don't want to waste anybody's time, right? It could be your why. I want to know this about me, and I want the people who took the time to interview me to have a good experience. You could include that in your why. And yet again, the more you stay centered in your own business, okay, it's focused, right? It's self-focused, not self-centered, but it is centered in self. So we have a concept that, self-centered is bad. Well, it's really about being in the clarity of what you're capable of so you can be a matching vibration to what you want. Right? So all law of attraction, it's not really that you attract things to you. If you were to say that, it would be kind of like weird, like what part of you attracted it, right? So it's about being a match in your consciousness. That your consciousness, meaning the whole kit and caboodle of you, meaning your beliefs, your genetics, what you've inherited, the culture you're in, the gender you're experiencing, the mass consciousness, all of that contributes to your experience, is that a match for what you want? Well, I'll tell you right now, it isn't, or you'd already have it. So you want to learn, how do I play the game to get my consciousness to be a match for what I want next? And the minute you get that, you're going to be off and running with more things, because that's the nature of life. It's creative. It's always expanding. So you want to choose to expand it very purposefully and consciously. Okay, so your why. Without a good why, again, your own business why, it could be to bless others, and yet it really needs to be dependent mostly on your experience of you. That could sound like, because it makes me feel good to help so-and-so, right? Your why, when you really hit it well, there's a sure way to know if you hit your why well. Your face will smile, right? So when I'm coaching with people or working with students and they're telling me something, I'm also observing their facial expressions, their body language, and when people speak the truth, they sit a little taller, there's a light that comes on, their face is agreeing to what they're saying in a very visible way, right? If somebody's telling me yes and their body's doing no, I realize there's some conflict there. So you'll know you hit a good why when it makes you feel good. And is there somebody trusted you can talk your why to? If you speak your why to somebody else and they believe you, you really are aligned to your why. Now this is so important. It's your why that'll keep you to persevere. Without a good why, you tend to drop the ball, right? Okay, and your how. So this is a little different in your first step. In your clarity level, the how, you want to use more of a strategic mindset on the big picture, right? When we get to action, to alignment, we'll have the action. That's more of your steps that you take, right? So this how is how you want to set yourself up. Well, how am I going to do that? Does it fit my why and my desire, right? So working with my fascia, I think I used this example maybe last week, you know, that your bones can come distorted from the pull of your muscles and fascia, right? So if your posture's off all the time, you really do shrink, you shrink up on one side, and the bones are shaped differently. So you have to, if you learn that bones replace themselves in about 11 months, and that, you know, then that would tell you, my how is, I gotta wait numerous 11 months to get this down. Do you see how that would help me stay the course? So this how, you want to be very logical. You want to have a really big picture. The alignment action steps would be all the little steps you take. This one's working with your mind. Clarity is really with your mind. So that used to really bother me all the time when I had chronic pain before. It was from a car accident. I was like, but all that tissue, all that bone, all that muscle is all new, right? Your cells are replicating every day. Different parts of your body are new at different time frames. Why does it keep paying it forward? Two reasons. Every cell that's replaced morphs the information from the cell it's replacing. So if you change your beliefs, you change your words, you change your actions, you change your experience of you have to hold it for a prolonged period until all the cells have shifted into that manifestation, right? So once something's solidified in the body, that's a denser form. If it's been there a really long time and it's solidified for numerous reasons, say genetics, right? Inherited patterns, and then you haven't yet changed all the belief systems that keep contributing to that, you've been co-creating it in this life experience, then that's a bigger undoing. So if you can look for that, we talked about a little bit about the set point challenge. Is it a pattern? You know, can you look? Has this existed long before you? I can tell you my mother and my grandmother did around the middle with very skinny ankles and wrists, right? So if I know that, and I know I am struggling against every belief I had as a child, that that's what you look like when you're older, if you're a female in my family, and what's going on in our culture now? What's the research? For women, it's a lot harder to lose weight after a certain age, so that's a different influence. And then for my own personal history, what's the influence? So if I look at these things, the how might even give me a realistic time frame, right? Or say you want to build a business selling, I don't know, say you want a shoe store. And so if you want a shoe store, you would get clear, what does it really take? You know, the commercial lease, the accounting, the taxes, the stock, the inventory, and then you'd want to be really realistic. Today on earth, how long does it take for a shoe store to become profitable? Whether it's a shoe store, brick and mortars business, or maybe something like what I do. Realistically, in our culture today, no new business will support anybody for a minimum of 3 years. So if you know that, then your how would include, I'm going to make sure I work 2 jobs or have income saved to nurse a new business into being, right? These are the bigger paradigm hows. And when you have this level of clarity, it will help you persevere. So think of it, everybody you admire, who's ever done anything you think is cool, the only difference between them and the people who didn't is they just didn't quit, they didn't give up. So knowing your how lets you know how much energy, how much commitment, how much focus, and you want to be intelligent. Can you do it? Can you do it and have a balanced life? So if you have children, that would look different. If you have pets, that would look different depending on your definition of how you parent or pet own them, or if you have responsibilities, if you have aging parents and you need to help them. So all these things come into play. That's where you want to get really clear. Whatever you pick, what's your unique, authentic how and your why. All right? And then how will you know you're successful? Again, it could include, well, other people will validate, but that is a teeny tiny part of it. How will you feel in it? How will you know you hit your mark? Will it feel easy? Will it uplift you? Will you be filled with more peace? Will you be quieter? Will you be noisier? Will you take more risk? Will you take less risk? You know, you want to really get strategic and use your mind here. Right? Okay, so one more piece I wanted to give you on set point challenge. How do you know what patterns are running? Like I said, it could be inherited, it could be ancestral, it could be heavily coded in your DNA, it could be patterns from your childhood that you keep replaying. So here's the down and dirty. What do you complain about? Even if it's privately. I don't complain too much out loud just because of vibrational law. But I have, you know, things that I don't like that are in my mind that I might complain to myself. And so you want to look at those. What pattern is it? And you know, it's really fun when you find them. So I'll share a personal example. This happened the morning I was going to the Woodlands group. So I'm looking at it, I'm like, okay. So I got this SI joint belt on, and the scale and weight seems to be creeping up again. Like, what's the pattern? Apparently I have a pattern running, and I haven't named it clearly yet. So what would that pattern be? So now I got to think, what have I seen? What am I believing? How would I describe this pattern? Now I'm really gifted at this with other people, and this time I hit the jackpot with myself. So aren't I now? So one thing that I would name the pattern as, and remember, don't take it very personally, is suffer in silence. So think about it. If I don't tell you I have pain, you won't know I have pain, right? And I won't talk pain very often. Learned that from Sarno's book originally. So I really don't talk about it. I might share what I'm doing, because that's cool to share, right? So I thought, well, okay, so weight just in the middle, that doesn't really inconvenience anybody but me, especially with a belt on. It's like, oh my goodness. And yes, it rolls when I sit. So that's about suffering in silence. It doesn't inconvenience anybody else. I don't spread it out. It's not, you know, bothersome to anybody. So a pattern of suffer in silence. Can I see any logic to that pattern? Sure. Parents in war, my grandmother. My mom loves how stoic the Brits are, right? I would be taught that that's something to admire. So what do you do when you say, oh wow, that resonates? That makes perfect sense to me. I see where I hurt feelings, suffer in silence. That's the opposite of expressing and saying, hey, that didn't work out for me. Can we talk and be intimate and share and move forward, right? Shutting down, withdrawal, those are all suffer in silence. So I'm looking back, I'm like, I think I've played with this pattern quite a bit. But I also see that it could be extended through the family line. So I find the logic of it. Then what do you want to do with it? When you find your challenges, the patterns that repeat, don't make it personal, just look at them as energetic patterns. Well, you want to just go to the opposite. So what, to me, right, again, authentic personal work. So to me, the opposite of suffering would be thrive or happiness, whatever lingo you resonate with there. And the opposite of silence is share. So I would be sharing with you how great everything's working out, and I would do it passionately and happily and express it. So when I give my mind this level of clarity, hey, look, we're just running an old pattern, right? Consciousness, energy cannot change until you bring awareness to it. And then not only do you bring awareness to it, don't get stuck there. Don't be mucking around in whose fault it is, why it happened. It doesn't need that much time, right? Figure out what the pattern is, name the pattern, make sure it makes sense to you, that you're on target, and then pick the opposite. So it doesn't matter how challenging life is. It doesn't matter what screwed you up, what hurt you, what limited you. All that matters is what are you going to do with it? That's it. So you can poke around if you want. You can do talk therapy for years and years and years. That's a path of expansion. And yet for somebody who would pay attention to this video or want to manifest well, it's the difference between successful people in business. They look at a problem and they spend maybe 3% of their attention there and 97% of their, okay, it's a problem, what's the solution? Well, personally and spiritually, you want to do the same thing. And yet you can't just clear. Say you're having a problem with anger. You can pray about anger, you can talk about anger, you can read about anger, but until you decide that you're going to replace that pattern with something, anger's not going anywhere. You could talk it out, you could tap it out, you could whatever it out. It's still not going anywhere until you actively, with clarity, choose what you're going to replace it with. So when I feel any of this old pattern coming up, like, oh, no, already played there. Now I'm going to thrive. Now I'm going to really feel it. And once you start getting good at this, you'll feel the internal clicks. Especially when you realize it's coming up loud because you're expanding into good and you just don't have stamina for it yet. Right? So behind every ick feeling, every limiting thought or pattern, there's something extra good that wants to come through for you. Your job is just staying in there till you figure out what it is and letting it in. Good? Okay. I have no idea when I started or ended, but I bet that's about time. So see you next week.